All right, guys, let's dive right back. Okay, so we talked about this in class. There's been 5 pay raises in presidential history, the most recent in 2001, and it is the current salary that the president makes annually, $400,000. Okay, in 1789, the president making $25,000, that is the modern day equivalent to 1.1 million. So we'll talk about, what you guys think. Do the presidents make too much, not enough? Is $400,000 a year worth that, stressful, difficult job as president of the United States? We talked about the White House being a perk or part of the compensation package, right? It's 132 rooms over, 18 acres, a fleet of automobiles. It costs, I think, annually about $4 million just to keep up with the maintenance of the groundskeeping and the gardens. You will receive $50,000 a year for expenses. We did this. We talked about this. $100,000 annually or per year for travel, campaign, and speeches. You'll get a spousal budget. You'll get a $19,000 entertainment account, if you will. We talked about this. Camp David. Okay, Camp David is a secluded Maryland vacation home. You get a full-time staff of about 400 to 500 full-time employees working, at the White House and the executive office of the president. You get the best health care. That's a no-brainer. And you also get Secret Service protection for life. And we will talk about that Former President's Act of 2012, stipulating that. Here is Camp David. I showed this to some of the classes. It's remote. It's in the woods. It's in Maryland. Pretty neat. You also get the use of Air Force One and Marine One, the president's airplane and helicopter. Okay, let's get to the nitty gritty here. What you need to know. The presidency, terms of office, 4 years. 4 years is one presidential term. You start, right, the January 20th in the odd number year. So you'll notice the elections are held in the even years, right? The election of 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016, Trump got elected, right? 2020, Biden got elected. And then they take office January 20th, that odd year. Okay, inauguration day. So Biden became the 46th president, January 20th, 2021. So elections are held in the the even year prior. And they're typically, the general election is held in November. The Electoral College vote happens in December, and then early January, Congress certifies the results. So again, the Constitution originally places no limitation on the number of presidential terms. George Washington, as the first president, establishes this precedent or tradition of stepping down after 2 terms. And up until, you'll see FDR, that's just the precedent. It was never written down. There were no term limits. And we talked about this earlier in the year. What you guys thought? Should there be term limits? Should there not be? The 20th Amendment, this is known as the lame duck amendment. You can see this was done in the 30s. It'll be ratified or go into law or effect 1933. And all it does is it moves the dates for the starting of Congress and the presidency from March, which is when the Constitution was ratified originally, March 4th, 1789. So those are the usual dates. Think about it. You're going to go into office 3 months after. It doesn't make sense. So it moves the dates. Congress will be January 3rd, and the president will be January 20th. It also provides for circumstances in the case the president-elect dies before inauguration, among other stipulations of this 20th Amendment. So all you really need to know is that it moves the dates for Congress and for the president. You don't want them going into office in March. The elections, right, were in November. So the presidency, we're going to talk about FDR, 1940. He becomes the first president in the United States not to step down after 2 terms or 8 years. Why? Time of crisis, Great Depression, World War II. He's going to be elected 4 times total. He will die very quickly within that 4th term, and Harry Truman will take over. So after the death of FDR, again, the why, time of crisis, global conflict, right? Great Depression within our country and abroad. In 1951, after FDR dies, 10 years later, they passed the 22nd Amendment, which limits the presidency's terms. So you can only serve 2 consecutive terms. This is known as the 22nd Amendment. Term limits for the presidency. Here it is. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person. So basically what this is saying is, in total, okay, and this is more for AP, you can be president total 10 years. So let's say, Joe Biden were to die in office and Kamala Harris steps in as vice president, and then she wants to run for president. Okay, she can have her 2 terms consecutively, 8 years, and then the 2 that she was elevated from VP to president upon the death of Biden. And that is just a hypothetical, guys. Okay, so 22nd Amendment, term limits for the presidency. Easy, right? All right, let's talk about presidential succession and the 25th Amendment. So, okay, you will see, let me just get all the slides here. 1841, we have the uber racist Indian or Native American hating William Henry Harrison, and he becomes president, and he will die in office. The story is he's delivering, a speech, State of the Union address, in the rain, he catches pneumonia, and he dies a month later. So his vice president, John Tyler, which is right here, will step in, and he sets the precedent of declaring himself president because this is the first time the actual president died. VP steps in, takes over. That is precedent or tradition. Just like Washington only serving 2 terms until the 22nd Amendment, and now until the 25th Amendment. So it was precedent, tradition, and it wasn't until 1967 where the 25th Amendment will be passed, which actually turns it into law. Okay, and it says if the presidency is vacant, if the president is incapacitated, the vice president will become president and then appoint a new vice president. So that's the 25th Amendment, okay? It's all about the vice president taking over in the case, of the president dying or something happening, maybe going under surgery, which did happen. Here it is. The 25th Amendment has been invoked 3 times since its inception of 1967. So the first time was in 73. The President of the United States, Nixon, right, his Vice President, Spiro Agnew, will resign, and he will replace him with Gerald Ford. Then Nixon resigns, and Gerald Ford, an unelected official politician, becomes president. No one ever voted for him. One-term president. Happens again a year later when Nixon resigns, so Gerald Ford becomes president, like I just said, and Gerald Ford will appoint Nelson Rockefeller as the new vice president. And then it'll happen in 1985 when Ronald Reagan was shot, and when he was under surgery, the vice president, George H.W. Bush, will step in and become president, for all of 8.5 hours. Okay. 8 presidents have died while in office. I'm actually going to, hopefully for the kids that are in class, give you a handout of this, of those presidents that succeeded them. Okay? So I'm going to come back to this because I don't think, just double check, I don't think I made copies for you guys just yet, which would be a huge bummer because I think it's easy if I just print this out for you. Like here, I'll show you what I'll do. I'll actually print it out like this, and I'll attach it. But real quick, we can go over it, okay? In 1841, when William Henry Harrison dies due to pneumonia, John Tyler takes over, okay? John Tyler is now the president. 1850, Zachary Taylor, I think he got cholera, and Millard Fillmore, the guy with the awesome hair, takes over. Second president to die. Third president to die in office, right? Abraham Lincoln, we know he was assassinated. Who takes over after Lincoln? Andrew Johnson. 1881, James Garfield, he will also be assassinated. And Chester A. Arthur takes over. Okay. 1901 is the next time a president dies. Again, 8 presidents have died while serving. Okay, and the VP has taken over. So going back to 1901 with McKinley. McKinley will die in office, and Teddy Roosevelt takes over. This begins the Roosevelt's era. 1923, we have William G. Harding. When he dies, okay, and I'm trying to think, did I write down what he died from? Heart attack. Poor Harding. Harding had a heart attack. Calvin Coolidge will take over. We know, right, FDR will die due to a stroke when he dies in 1945. Truman will take over, okay? Harry Truman. And then last but not least, in 1963, this should show a bullet, or again, another assassination. JFK will be replaced by LBJ. Okay, so we've had 4 presidents assassinated in office, right? Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, and JFK, as you can see here. In 1947, the Congress will pass a law, and it's called the Presidential Succession Act, and it lists the order of presidential succession in the case of, something awful happening, some sort of calamity. So here is the line of presidential succession. So we obviously have the president, then we have the vice president, Speaker of the House, the president pro tempore of the Senate, secretary, and then it falls to the cabinet. So it's VP, highest position in the House, highest position in the Senate, mostly ceremonially, okay? Then it goes to the cabinet. So you have Secretary of State, okay, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Defense. How I always remember the order, I know this sounds awful, STD, okay, State, Treasury, Defense, okay, STD. And it goes through, right, all 15 cabinets. Okay, this is from a while ago. I did not change this, so I'm just going to keep flipping through. Let's chat a little bit about Mike Pence, the former vice president. I got to update this, guys. I got to put in our girl Kamala Harris, the current vice president. He was the former governor of Indiana. He was a conservative, a Republican, just like Trump. All right. I just want to get through this, and hopefully I will be done here. So Article 2 of the Constitution will give presidential power, and it gives its lists, okay? It delegates the power of the president, okay? They're able to command the armed forces or the military. They're the ones that make peace treaties with the advice and consent of the Senate. They're the one that asks for the written opinion of their cabinet. They get to send and appoint, receive ambassadors. They appoint judges, ambassadors, and the cabinet, right? Those secretaries. They're able to grant reprieves and pardons, and commuting sentences, okay? They get to sign and veto bills. Okay, and the language of the Constitution is take care that the laws be faithfully executed, okay, meaning carried out. Another major kind of presidential thing on the to-do list is they're supposed to deliver the State of the Union address, okay, on an annual basis, and that is in the Constitution. So why and how did the presidential power grow? Over time, Congress lost power and the presidency gained it. Why? The role of the media, that definitely has something to do with it. Really, the unity within the executive branch, it's one unified leader, right? A unified office, one figurehead, if you will, versus 535 members of Congress. Quicker decision making, right? Especially when you compare it to the kind of deadlock, okay, or contentiousness of Congress. As we expanded, right, with industrialism and expansion, we have a larger role and need for the federal government, and the president's going to be the face of it. We have times of conflict and crisis, like with both Roosevelts, and we've had war, Great Depression in our country and a global depression. And so during these times of economic or social crises, citizens look to the president as that figurehead, as that support system. So yes, Congress has the ultimate authority. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. My face is covering it. And I have here, Congress has blank authority to carry out laws. Congress has no authority. Congress doesn't carry out the laws. The executive branch does. Congress writes the laws, passes the laws. That's why we want those experts in Congress representing the people. It is the executive branch that enforces the laws. So sometimes when you're dealing with the enforcement of laws, again, it's more kind of national sensation. Okay, Congress has no authority carrying out or executing the laws. Another do now, I'm going to flip through. This was from your textbook. It's showing the constitutional powers of the president. So in terms of national security, they're commander-in-chief. They make treaties. They nominate ambassadors. I'm going to talk about all of this. Legislative powers. Yeah, they have a little bit of lawmaking powers. They sign or veto bills. They present information on the State of the Union to Congress. They recommend legislation, right? They're a little influential and persuasive. They have administrative powers, right? Executing those laws passed by Congress. And so you can see, and then they have removal powers, which we'll talk about as well. We did this in class, or we will do it in class if you're watching this before I see you on next Monday. There is a difference between executive orders and laws. And I'm going to end this at 15 minutes because I am going to continue directly teaching the rest of this. The 7 chief or fundamental roles. As you guys can see here, right, the important presidential roles, there are 7 major roles. I am going to teach this on Monday and Tuesday leading up to your quiz. I won't probably get through all 7. Who knows how ambitious I'm feeling, but I'm going to end this now. So here is less than 20 minutes. Take notes on this. The 20th, the 22nd, the 25th Amendment, presidential succession. You need to know at least the first 6 people in line of presidential succession. So here it is, right? The president, vice president, Speaker of the House, highest position in the House, President pro tempore of the Senate, highest position ceremonially in the Senate. Okay? Counting the president, those are the first 4. Then it falls to the cabinet, and I only want the first 3 cabinet. Remember, STD, Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Defense. Okay? All right, I'm signing off. Goodbye, and I'll see you guys next week.